Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel today on super-aggregation and cloud-powered IPTV, a case study. My name is Andy Waltenspiel. I'm going to be your moderator today. Super-aggregation, the big buzzwords in everybody's head and mouth these days. But we're not just going to want to talk about buzzwords. We want to break it down for you, bit by bit. What does it take? What are the challenges? And what are the pitfalls? And then, of course, also give an outlook. We're going to have an interesting story today. It all started with a divorce, but I'm not going to tell you too much now. So it will be interesting to learn who divorced who, why, what happened, and what can you learn from it. Before we go there, let me introduce you to our fantastic panelists. I'm going to make my life easy because all three of them today are in charge of product at their respective companies. So they think B2B2C, consumer orientation, user experience, strategy, development, fantastic stuff. So one by one, we have Chris Thun of TiVo. Hi, Chris. He's from San Francisco, and he's the VP product at TiVo. Before joining TiVo, he's been at Apple. You might see some of that influence in his thinking and what you see in TiVo. He's also been at Yahoo, and before that, founder of Fan TV, which was later on acquired by TiVo. Thanks for joining us today. And we have Edwin Elberg, Liberty Latin America from Chile. Hola, ¿qué tal?
Very happy to be here.
He's Senior Director, Product Development, and in charge of not just entertainment, but also for connectivity, which surely has an impact on this super aggregation and the user experience. Before joining Liberty Latin America, he was at VTR Chile, Telefonica in Madrid, and also at Verizon. We found out that we both studied at MIT the same year, the same school. We have not met. That was 21 years ago. Apparently, I was just partying and he was studying, but see where he is now. Huh? And then we have Jim Brickmeyer from Velocix joining us from Atlanta today. He is the Chief Product and Marketing Officer of Velocix. 20 years in telecoms, and I think, Jim, you might be one of the culprits why we're seeing this cloudification and transformation of our industry. Happy to learn more about that from you in a bit. Before joining Velocix, he was at Nokia, Concurrent, and also board member of the Streaming Alliance. A few words about myself, Andy Waltenspiel. I'm running a Munich-based consultancy for the telco and media industry, working with operators and telcos and tech vendors. Before that, I've been at Nagra and Samsung and what is called now Sky Germany, and in the industry a bit more than 20 years, or around 20. So welcome, everyone. A bit of housekeeping before we jump in. This will be recorded, so we can at any time re-watches, catch up this talk. And we're going to have Q&A. So use the screen. You have a little field there where you can put your questions. Send them to us anytime, and we'll ask them whenever it fits and keep some time at the end. Perfect. So it's time. What are we talking about? Super aggregation. Why is super aggregation at all necessity for the industry? We're going to jump in and look at the trends. What is the underlying larger picture? Then we're going to do the case study, which obviously you guess it's about Edwin and Liberty Latin America and how these three companies here played well together. And we're going to talk about the one thing that interests us the most, which is money. How do we monetize all this? Because all nice technology, great UIs, doesn't matter if you can't monetize it. So that will be a key topic as well. And we're going to do a little outlook at the end and what is coming next. We're just at the beginning, so what is there to expect? Perfect. So here is one interesting statistics from the US. 47% are frustrated. No, this has nothing to do with the upcoming vote. It's about TV viewership. Why are people frustrated? They're frustrated because of the growing number of subscriptions and services they need to subscribe to in order to watch what they have watched in the past from maybe just one supplier. 10 years ago, you subscribe to, I don't know, Dish TV or or Comcast, and you got everything from one hand. Now you need to subscribe to multiple of these services, and we're going to have statistics coming a bit later showing how many they are. It's a huge number. So people are frustrated. It gets even worse when the content disappears from the platform they just subscribed to. So 57% were found by Deloitte to be frustrated when the content they love disappears from their platform. So if you're a lover of Friends and suddenly Friends moves elsewhere, you're not happy. Of course not. So currently the pendulum swings in the direction more and more fragmentation. There's direct-to-consumer plays of some of the content owners. And we're going to see how do we bring that back, and how can the classical operators such as Liberty keep control and bring it back and make the customers happy. So this was the intro. At this point, I would like to hand over to Chris, because what TiVo is doing, quite interestingly since a while, they do a trend report. And Chris will give us some insight on the trend report from Q1 this year and some of the interesting findings. Chris.
Thank you, Andreas. If we could go back to the slides for a minute, and I'll pick up where you left off. And I think it's important in grounding a conversation like this in terms of pointing out the context of where we are in terms of the trends. And so if you start with the chart on the left, I think it is important. It's not repetitive, though I think most on this call will be aware of this trend. But this is a really interesting point in time. There's a significant degree of disruption occurring. If you think back to 2014, we had time spent from a video perspective where about 95% was coming from your operator, from live TV, DVR, and operator VOD, and only 5% from the streaming world, services like Netflix and Hulu and others. Now, fast forward to today, and you're seeing streaming obviously catching up, and this was pre-COVID, these numbers. But I think all of us can agree, based on the trends we're seeing, that there's gonna come a point in the not too distant future, whether it be 2024, as this chart indicates, or sooner, if you believe that the COVID trend is gonna be persistent in terms of the igniting the streaming energy. But the question is, whether you're an operator, whether you're a content owner, whether you're a software provider, whether you're a cloud infrastructure provider, what are the implications of this tectonic shift in terms of the way that video is delivered? And then from a consumer perspective, I think Andreas's points on the previous slides were super interesting. Another way to look at that is, if you think back to 2011, and I'm going to use US stats here, but I think you can project it out in some degree to other markets around the world. The average number of services that an American household subscribed to and consumed from was just north of 1 back in 2011. You really had no need for aggregation when you only subscribed to just north of 1 service. But fast forward to today, and what we're seeing in our survey data is the average American household on a monthly basis is using just shy of 7 services. In that world, it gets pretty confusing pretty fast and leads to the stats that Andreas was mentioning. So moving to the next slide, it's not just OTT and live content from your chosen operator. There's also other forms of content in the mix, where the fastest growing source of revenue right now is AVOD, ad-supported free VOD. And we're seeing AVOD take a share of 18% of viewing time as measured by some survey work and in behavioral data. And so, again, I think this underscores the idea that the number of sources, the number of services that are delivering video are just growing exponentially. But moving to the next slide. So what does it all mean? We're big believers in terms of 2 core areas that are absolutely required as this world comes into clarity. Number one is you need universal search. The consumer doesn't want to have to hunt across kind of app silos, a sea of apps, in order to find what they want to watch. They don't want to have to go into Netflix, see if the movie that they want to watch is on Netflix, and if it's not, hop to another app. That's just not a good user experience. And universal search is what solves that. And so moving on to the next slide, and one more. The other key ingredient, and we're big believers in this, and I call this, rather than universal search, I call this universal browse. And what I mean by that is recommendations that guide you, that understand why you turned on the TV at any one point in time. So you don't have to spend 10 minutes looking for what you want to watch, but instead predictive recommendations that knows that last night at 8 p.m. you finished watching episode 3, and therefore you're probably tuning in to watch episode 4. And if you're looking for something new to watch, we're pushing forward the titles based on your past behavior that we best think fit your taste profile. So combine universal search and universal browse, like strong recommendations, and you really have a clean path to simplifying the user experience in making the consumer more content in this world of fragmentation. And by the way, if the consumer is more content, that's good for everybody in the ecosystem. The operator can reduce churn. If the consumer doesn't have to hit the input button to go to another streaming device, but instead is kept in your experience, that's a really good thing for the business fundamentals. So I'm going to stop there and move on. But Andreas, take it back from your perspective.
Okay, thank you for these insights, Chris. Quite interesting. Most of that you said was Q1 data, so pre-COVID. So maybe a question to the whole panel. What has changed in the last 6 months? I mean, we're living in very, very special times. Unprecedented times. So how did that change? Did it increase 2x, 3x? And if it has changed, is it going to be here to stay, or will it be going away by a vaccine? I don't know, maybe Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start at a high level, and I alluded to this in my earlier comments. Across the TiVo platform, we definitely saw a massive spike in engagement with streaming services. And it makes sense, right? There was really nothing on linear TV. Sports disappeared for a few months. There were no new shows. And so if you wanted to be entertained, you really needed to turn to the catalogs of the streaming services. And so we did see that spike. The other thing we saw, though, and I think this underscores the power of live TV, was news spiking. People watching, on average, more than 2 hours more in a given week than they did pre-COVID, in order to stay attuned to what was going on in the world. And so I think there you see the seeds of why live will have legs going into this new world between sports and things like news. So that's kind of top line what we saw. Now, I think the big question and where you're going is, will those trends persist? I think reasonable people could disagree in terms of the degree to which they'll persist. Yeah. But I think it's fair to say that there's been an acceleration from a consumer adoption of streaming as a primary source of entertainment that has, to some degree, accelerated the trends that pre-existed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's great. A great point, actually, on just streaming in general being picked up as something that people did during the lockdowns. So I think in general the public has become much more familiar, irrespective of where that content came from, whether it was live news content or it's on-demand content, whether it came from Netflix or it came from other services, that people became much more familiar with streaming as a service, and perhaps some people that may not have taken advantage of it have have participated in streaming entertainment now during this pandemic, and I do think it will continue as we move forward.
Okay, Edwin, I mean, you saw the subscribers, but first of all, you had to make sure that your networks are alive and people can watch in the first place. I mean, you got huge spikes at the beginning, I guess, right?
Yeah, we got the amount of increase in traffic in 2 weeks that we get in a whole year. So clearly, people were using much more the internet, not only for entertainment but also for work. And clearly, the internet is a lifeline for everybody. So that was one of our biggest challenges. And clearly, I couldn't agree more with Chris and Jim. This is here to stay because it's not only a spike in the usage, but also on the speed in which this technology is being adopted.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a bit of context now. So let's jump into the case study. And of course, when you do integration, it means multiple moving pieces that you need to integrate and put together. So we brought just 3 from a big team here. Liberty Latin America, TiVo, and Velocix. So as you might have guessed, dear guest, that of course this is a case study about Liberty Latin America. Surprise, surprise, that's why Edwin is here. So tell us, as I said, it all started with a divorce. What was that and what happened?
Well, the divorce, it's maybe a big strong of a word, but in reality, yes, we had to split our ways with our cousins of Liberty Global. We were one company and we were working in several products together. And all of a sudden, we became 2 companies, one focused in Europe and another one in Latin America and the Caribbean. When that happened, we were faced with a big challenge, which is everything we were working on, while it was able to scale up, we saw our challenge in the ability of scaling down. So, I mean, several times you will think what I need is for this system to scale up, but scaling down is something that not always you bring into mind, and it is needed in regions like our own, where you have countries that, while having their own currency and their own rights for content, they are not more than 10,000, a few tens of thousand customers. So to be able to develop a whole system for pay TV for just so few customers, that it was not going to work. And then we decided that we need our own solution.
Okay. So at the time, what were the key challenges you were facing?
So the challenges is, well, first of all, you have a complete new world, which is all the emergence of the OTT products that we knew our customers needed to have integrated, right? And how do you do that with a disparity of technologies? We had several disparate pay TV systems. Some of them had set-top boxes that are 15 years old. And then you begin thinking, okay, how do you provide a unified, attractive experience on all of these, while you keep your ability to scale down? So you need a solution that is able to reach all of your customers, no matter how big or how small their region. Also, you want to benefit of everything that the new technology is making possible, like the cost structure for the set-top boxes that we have to thank probably our OTT cousins and their and spreading up the adoption, right, and the mass economies into this. The ability of the cloud is key for us to reach our scale down and a homogeneous experience across all our markets. And we were also looking for, we not only want to be aggregators, but super aggregators. And maybe the big difference, and that is the topic of today's discussion, is in the metadata and your ability to not only integrate, but also have a cohesive user experience across all these things. With that in mind, we started our search for what would be the best solution.
Yeah. Okay. So when we prepared this, you told me that there are 4 things that keep you awake at night. So I'll summary. Tell me if I got it right. As I said, customer needs, technology trends, competition, and I would not have guessed the last one. It's regulation.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the 4 ingredients that we use as inputs to the product work we do in Liberty, right? You need to see, of course, what are the customers wanting, not only today but in the future, and all this OTT. How is that reshaping how we think of our customers' behavior? We need to keep an eye then on these technology trends, which are the enables, right? I mean, probably with the technology of, I would say, 3 years ago, what we are doing is just not possible. We would have to break the bank to do something like this. Yeah. Then, of course, we need to do to look at our competitors, and here, I mean, it is a bit of a game, right? I mean, we need to find out what are the competitive advantages that are going to give us an edge over our competitors in the long term, right? Because the last thing you want to do as a product person is you have an innovation just to be copied the very next day by your competition. And finally, regulation and everything to do with all the bureaucracy that says what is it that you can do and what is it that you cannot do. With those 4 ingredients, you design what is the product that you want.
Okay. So, and then one morning you woke up and called Chris and Jim, or how did it work?
Well, we called them, yes, I would say over the course of several mornings, afternoons, and some nights in a competitive RFP process where we analyzed. At the first, it was not so clear, probably as it is today, that Android TV was the way to go. So we had some soul searching there and some scouting on alternatives. At that time, you did have some alternatives. One of them we came. I mean, we were working on, right, the RDK together with our Liberty Global cousins. But there were many streamers that were touting their own solution for pay TV operators, and we took a look at all of them. I would say at that time, with a little bit of wisdom, but also a little bit of luck, I think we made the right choice on Android TV, on cloud. And when it came to the role of super aggregator, which was from the beginning part of our strategy, we selected also TiVo because they not only provide a solution in terms of middleware on top of and a nice UX on top of what Android TV can do, but because of their ability to integrate vertically their metadata, they were providing the experiences that we were dreaming of for our customers. And that is how this marriage came to be.
Okay. So maybe Chris, from your perspective, when Liberty reached out to you, you said, okay, we have the perfect fit, or was it easy, or you had hard work? How did you see them at the time? And is that something you see in other operators today as well?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to go back to the idea of what the consumer wants in the competitive environment. And I think in our initial conversations, I distinctly remember one of the first in-depth conversations, and it wasn't viewing a bunch of slides or looking at a spreadsheet in terms of costs. It was sitting on a couch in a living room with a remote control that we passed around, looking at user experience and talking about what the consumer really wants in the coming world. And that's super important to understand in terms of our philosophy of how you build product and how you position across the operator and TiVo for success. And I would argue that from a competitive perspective, Edwin, you had a much broader definition, but I encourage operators to define the competition is the input button on the remote control. And what I mean by that is it's not about who you're paying your monthly bill to as often as not. It's about the more they hit that input button and leave your experience, the more chances they're not going to come back, or they're going to see less and less value in terms of the live TV offering. And so, again, I'll go back to some of my opening comments. I always encourage folks, and it's a well-worn saying that the house always wins, whether in a casino or a horse track. And I'd much rather own the horse track than be betting only on one horse in the race. And that's what we mean in terms of build the best user experience that consumers love, and that's sticky and that they want to stay in terms of consuming from Netflix or live TV or DVR or otherwise. But ultimately, it was actually a very quick conversation, despite being across multiple nights, multiple mornings, multiple days, because we realized fairly quickly that we were aligned in terms of where the world was headed and what the consumer wanted. It was really, I think, Edwin, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of it became, okay, we agree on where the world is going, but how fast can you deliver? And obviously there's a pricing dimension. And that's where the way that we're building product in this world in terms of a federated multi-tenant environment, that where multiple operators are investing in the same TiVo platform, the same experience, which allows us to move really fast, relatively speaking, in this industry. And so that was where a lot of the attention was in terms of the execution, but I'll stop there.
Okay. Jim, I mean, those guys, for me on the right, their user experience, UI, remote control. What you do is not as sexy on first look, but probably without you, nothing of that would ever happen. So what was your role in that whole thing?
Yeah, so really we underpin the TiVo experience, right? So we help with the delivery end of streaming. So we support the ingest and the recording of video content and some of the time-shifted kinds of advanced time-shifted services like cloud DVR services. And then we support the delivery of the content to any device that the consumer may have. And so, to reinforce the point that Chris mentioned, I mean, it really is, for us in this equation, number one, yeah, TiVo is a big selling point in terms of the user interface, but another decision point is how quickly and easily can you get this product to market. And that's what we've worked really closely with TiVo on, has been in the integration and trying to make a standardized kind of an end-to-end architecture that can be quickly deployed, and where you can actually exercise all of those capabilities that TiVo has in their user interface, and to do that seamlessly, to scale it out, make sure it's flexible. And so that's the work that we do under the covers, working with TiVo, is just to make sure that they can actually present that full solution to the operator and to consumers, and to deal with the complexities of the foundational infrastructure.
Okay. Topic of this talk is also cloud-powered IPTV. I always find it surprising that they're still operators saying, I want an on-prem solution. So maybe let's just quickly, Jim, recap. What are the pros and cons of going to the cloud? Are there any cons at all? Why would I still do an on-prem solution?
Yeah, sure. So, what cloud gives you is it definitely gives you flexibility, and the ability to change in response to what's happening from a consumer demand standpoint. But it does add some complexity, and that's part of the challenge from a solution provider perspective, is to try to make sure that everybody has all of that flexibility that they want, but you don't make it so complicated to operate and manage and maintain these solutions that you lose all of the benefits of that flexibility. The other piece is that for operators that own their own networks, delivering video on network remains the most cost-effective way of delivering video. And so the question is when is it appropriate to start looking outside of their own network to expand to other types of environments, like public cloud environments, so that you can get some expansion capability, or maybe you expand your reach beyond the networks that you maintain. And so that's what we see in terms of cloud. We talk a lot about hybrid cloud, which means that you can use cloud technology within a service provider's network, on network, and we can also use that same technology outside of a service provider's network. And then the cool stuff is really trying to figure out, how do you manage workloads across those different environments, and be smart about how you distribute content to consumers to give them the best quality at the lowest cost.
Okay, good. So, by the way, if you have any questions, send them to us. Use the tool. We'll bring them in here. I saw a few coming, so we'll get them on. Bring them on. So we talked about cool technology, users, but super aggregation is not just a technology play. It also has to do with content. You need to have content that you aggregate, and you need to have somebody on the selling end, the content owners, that must be willing to be integrated with you. How is that, Edwin? Are they always happy to be integrated? Isn't that a challenge sometimes?
Well, it is, right? But it is part of our business since the beginning of pay TV, right? Nowadays, the border between pure OTT players and traditional players is blurry. Traditional players are going directly to consumer when and if they can. But I think the key there is to be able to show them what there is to gain. I mean, there are two things here that I think are very interesting for them. One has to do with the adoption. So, especially in our geographies, it is not. The adoption curve is a curve that you need to ride, and clearly, when you are riding on top of a pay TV service, you are reaching the late majority in a very effective way. And also there is the issue of, and maybe this is a little bit local in my geography, but not everybody in Latin America and the Caribbean has an international credit card. But everybody pays their phone or their internet bill, should I say. So in that sense, we can help the players with our monthly relationship with the customers. Okay, so those two things combined with an experience that we believe engages the customers with their own service more than if they were on their own, because the customer really doesn't care who's the content they're watching. Those three pillars, I think, are the key to a successful partnership with the content people that ultimately result in the success of the super aggregation model.
Okay, so that's some good key success factors, because and now we have the, like you said, the third pillar. It's the user experience, it's the content, but it's also the services that go with it. So not just content aggregator, experience aggregator, you're also service aggregator. So the universal billing, for example, universal search is something, Chris, you mentioned. And of course, Jim, you have make sure that it gets distributed everywhere efficiently, on net, off net. So maybe, Jim, how does that integration with a CRM and billing work, or whoever is best to answer that? So what are the challenges? What do you need to take care about it and take into account?
Yeah, it's probably Chris may want to talk about that, because that's where the TiVo system will come into play in integrating.
Chris.
And on the billing side, and Edwin, I'll hand this off to you fairly quickly. But Edwin, you were very eloquent in terms of the value, especially in Latin America, in terms of credit card penetration, et cetera, of having a billing relationship. The first step is to get a customer with a billing relationship. And second step, if they engage with the user experience, you have over time so many opportunities to monetize, whether it be engagement with free ad-supported content or upselling additional OTT services. But we work very closely with our customers to integrate the TiVo system into the operator's billing setup. But Edwin, you can talk more about how you guys think about billing overall.
Yeah, I would say that we do get, a great support from the TiVo, so that when it comes to billing, we get what we're called the CDR. So everything that needs to be built will get built. We will be getting those also from the content people that get viewed or have their provisioning not directly into inserted into the TiVo system. And challenges, I would say, usually are not so in the technology space, but more in the business space. Many content people would like to get paid in US dollars or euros, but our customers not always pay in those currencies. And then what do? Do you change the monthly fee every month? What happens to taxes? I mean, in many cases, taxes are a little bit of a gray area, and depends on the country whether over-the-top services that are provided abroad are taxed or not. Clearly, our bill includes the tax. So I mean, there are many business challenges that you need to address, and it's a little bit of one-by-one, case-by-case work that you need to do. I hope as this model turns more mainstream, there are going to be standards and systems that will allow us to remove a lot of that friction from adding a new content source. But today, I would say it's still some work.
Okay. So it was an interesting question from the audience that fits very well here. So, and the question is, who do you think, and we can go around the table, the virtual table, the global table, who among channels, broadcasters, platforms, etc., is best placed, positioned from a viewer perspective to retain overall control of that aggregated offering? Is it a telco like you? Is it the channels themselves? Is it maybe the GAFAMs, the FANGs, or however you want to call them? What do you think?
Well, I'll take a first step here. I have to say it is ourselves, right? But why bother? But the question is why? And I would say because there is a transition that from the world of pay TV into the world of super aggregation. Okay, so and that transition, if you start from a single content provider, well, by definition, they will not be super aggregated, right? They are passing the problem of aggregation to the customer, right? In the hopes that that customer will remain with them for the most time, but eventually the customer will want to watch some content from other sources. On the other hand, the FANGs are probably the biggest threat for us telco operators, I believe, because they are used to super aggregation. Super aggregation is not a concept that was invented in video, right? Probably the first super aggregator was Google, and the way what they super aggregates when they started is websites, right? Websites are content, and they are providing a way. We forget, but in the beginning, you had to really know what you were looking, or go over several browse over internet index. I'm talking ancient history here, in order to get to the content you wanted in the internet. So the FANGs clearly know how to super aggregate. Mm-hmm. What we have here is probably the best, I hope, of both worlds. One is we have a monthly relationship with our customers, and our customers trust us and are used to us to provide them content, aggregated content, not super aggregated in the beginning, right? But that is our role, and we know content, and we are good judges of what content is good, when, and how for our customers. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I believe that that is the difference with the FANGs. I mean, we are specialized in content. We are the ones that are feeding that content today, and the transition with a pay TV customer into this way of integrating these other sources of video content into their pay TV offering, because that's the thing, pay TV is not going away. You still want to watch the news, you still want to watch sports, etc. So that transition is much smoother if done by us than by a FANG. That would be my take.
So that trust is a key point, and that answers one of the questions that just came in, which was, are telcos more likely to be the super aggregator or the pay TV providers? And I might extend it, or the FANGs. And you just answers, whoever the customer trusts will be probably the most successful in getting this done. The one that doesn't frustrate them, that has unique search, global search, unified billing, and a trust relationship, and relevance, of course, for that. And you might even aggregate the utilities. And I mean, there's multiple players coming from different angles trying to super aggregate. Pay TV moving up, telcos moving down. We even see trends where, say, it's not video and you bundle broadband on top. In some geographies, it's different now. Video get bundles on top of broadband. So there's an interesting mix happening. So we'll see. But let's talk a little bit about how do we make money. We talked about how to be successful. What are the additional things we can offer to the consumer that gives you higher ARPU? And I think, Chris, you have some cool ideas there.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you have to start with the foundation. And we've said this over and over again. You first need the customer relationship. And that's could be broadband, that could be a live TV package. But once you have that recurring relationship and you've built the trust of the consumer, you can do a lot in terms of offering and building on that trust by recommending which services to upsell them to. And you offered a lot of ideas in your comments over the past 2 minutes, even expanding it to utilities and things outside entertainment. But again, foundation of trust, and then monetize over time. Even recommendations, recommending content that is ad supported is a huge opportunity per my opening comments. It is the fastest growing source of revenue from a growth perspective, trajectory in the current market. And so we're investing heavily in bringing ad-supported content into the TiVo experience and figuring out how to create a win-win where the customer is getting something for free, which customers love free content. The operator is getting a happier customer, and between the ecosystem, we're splitting the ad revenue. So that's a very good thing long term.
Okay. How does it impact you on the cloud side, Jim? This whole personalization, advanced advertising, is that transparent, or do you need to really tweak the system?
No, there's quite a bit of technology involved in integrating personalized advertising, and there are new ways of buying and selling advertisements as well in the video space, moving from traditional ad sales models toward more programmatic TV advertising. And, as we deliver live streams, there's some contextual information around how the consumer is watching, right? So you may deliver different types of advertisements if somebody's on a mobile device than if they're watching on their TV, or if, it's a particular time of day, or they're in a different geography, you may change the types of advertisements you deliver. I think the key for a lot of operators as they start to look at this ad-supported model, which everybody is looking at now and trying to figure out how do we enhance the video business case through advertising, is really how do you implement that in such a way that you can extract as much value as possible off of every individual stream that you deliver to the consumer. And that's some of the stuff that we do just from an execution standpoint, making sure that the streaming systems can support that personalized ad. So every single individual stream that you deliver to consumers is monetized with the absolute best ad that's going to generate the most for the associated stakeholders.
Okay. So even one more challenge for somebody like you, Edwin, because you need to also super-aggregate audiences, right? In order to be interesting for the guys that sell these ads. And I've seen interesting concept elsewhere where we see, sometimes it's not even enough to be one operator. So I saw some telcos in countries cooperate to have one platform, because each one on itself, also being huge, is too small on a country scale. So one more thing to aggregate: audiences for ads. Okay, very interesting. Let's look at the way forward. We have 10 minutes left. Let's spend some of that for what do we think is going to happen now. We talked about what are the things we need to do to make it happen, what are the ingredients, some pitfalls, what's important, of course, always the consumer view. What do you think is coming next? What's the next step? So in 5 years from now, or let's say 3, what does the future of super aggregation look like? What are the new things we're going to see? Maybe Edwin, you want to start?
Well, I think a lot of it will come from standardization of becoming the dominant model for content distribution. I think that, I mean, not only in the billing, but there are many rules that you need to study and to take care when integrating a new piece of content. I think that we will see, as this model becomes dominant, a standard that you would be able to follow as a content provider and also as a platform to ensure that the integration will be seamless. And today, getting a new app integrated in the form of super aggregator, not just in the App Store, right?
Yep.
But to be able to provide, to really understand what is the content so that you can recommend and really integrate it into your viewing and discovery experience takes time, right? And it is because I think we are at the beginning of this. I think we are going to see a standard evolve, and a lot of the friction that happens today is removed as this become the way to integrate content.
Okay, Chris, what's your view?
So it's interesting. I almost want to combine a question you asked 10 minutes ago with this one, in terms of, I think the $100 billion question, not $1 million question, 100 billion. Is who has the leverage going forward? And Edwin, I like your reframing of it, is who builds the trust with the consumer. But you see it on a number of different dimensions in terms of how the deals are shaping up in between the streaming platforms and the operators, where the operators, it's the operators' market to lose. They already own the customer relationships. And so if we play our cards right, we'll hold on to those the consumer relationships. But you see it in other areas of the ecosystem as well, in terms of who has the leverage between the TV OS versus the content owners, the streaming services. And you see a lot of the content owners starting to go direct, whether it be Disney Plus or Peacock or guys like that. And you see friction bubbling over into the PR arena in terms of all of a sudden HBO Max and Peacock not being on Roku and Amazon, and negotiations being very obvious through a weekend. And so that's a sign that in terms of where the market is headed, there is a search for who has the leverage and who has the ability to woo the consumer and build their trust over time. Is it the TV OS? Is it the streaming platform? Is it the operator? And I think we will see over the next 5+ years, we'll see a lot of change in terms of that dynamic, and it will become more and more obvious where the leverage is. So something to watch.
Okay. Jim, under the hood, what are the cool things that will enable all the very cool things that will end up in the operators and customers' homes?
Yeah. Well, I think it's Yeah, as you look down the road, you know, across industries, you hear a lot about machine learning, and really under the covers of that is that there's data inside of these platforms, right? And so there's data about how consumers are watching, what they're interested in, you know, how the underlying systems are responding, and the value. I mean, you mentioned, Edwin, that Google was the first sort of super aggregator. I mean, they have realized that, right? That the power is in the data. That's how you generate significant growth out of your business. And so I think that's what you're going to see over the next 5 years is a lot of focus on extracting and analyzing and understanding and responding to the data that's inside these networks, and then using that not only to boost the consumer experience and make it just a much better experience for consumers, but also to figure out for the folks that are delivering the service, how do you generate more revenue, more value from the services that you're delivering, and ultimately, you know, just make every single stakeholder involved in video more successful.
Okay. So we talked about content. Content might not just be video, it might be also audio, it might be sound, it might be gaming, it might be AR, VR, XR. What are the things you see coming next, Edwin? What is coming?
I mean, clearly, you mentioned a lot that we are looking into. I think, I mean, when watching content on your screen, you start thinking, okay, what are things that looks good in this big screen? And gaming is clearly one of those. You can already see some convergence between the video and the gaming technology. So I think that is coming. It doesn't really make sense to have specialized set-top boxes, let me say, for gaming.
Yeah.
Maybe not for everybody. So I think there is going to be a convergence there. Also, I think that even in traditional content, these new models of AVOD will bring us content that today is hidden from the mainstream. So I believe that we will finally get some long tail with uber personalization of the content that you can watch. There is content being produced, and I think the technology and the business models that we are seeing emerge will make possible for those unique pieces of content to find audiences in the mainstream that today are not connected. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that if my mom would be offered a channel that specializes in the very recipes that she loves, she would watch it, but there is no way she will find that. I think we will make that possible, and this technology is probably going to do marvels in that space for us in the next few years.
Good. Chris, from your side?
You know, I think I take kind of the traditional product view that it's equally important what you say no to versus yes. And I think in a lot of the lists that you offered, I would argue that that's why we embraced Android TV, because we want to choose our investments very carefully. And as TiVo, we want to be the best at universal discovery in the entertainment space, and everything we're doing from a recommendations perspective and otherwise, that's what we want to own. And we're leaning on Android TV and the Google Play Store to still offer the consumer the access to the latest and greatest bright, shiny objects as VR becomes real, as gaming platforms build breadth. That's really our approach and strategy in terms of defining where to place our bets.
Okay. Good. So we're approaching the full hour. So let me try to summarize, and you can agree or hopefully not disagree. So what are the cool things you need to put in place if you want to be a super aggregator? One of the first things, if you want to be super aggregator, you need super metadata. That's number one. You need the right partners to put it together to go fast and scale. Cloud definitely helps there. It's a prerequisite. Without cloud, it's very difficult to scale big. Scale down is what you started, but I think your target is to scale up, Edwin, if I'm not wrong, right? So it's the user experience, is the content, is convincing the content owner to join you, and the trust relationship seems to be one of the key things. But you still need the power to deliver it. So you need the right guys under the hood to manage all that, including advanced advertising, even AVOD and recommendations that might be monetized in some or the other way. You were, and I might close with a question, and we might leave it open. You were speaking about standards, and you hope that standards evolve, Edwin. Only in the very last minute, Chris, you talk about Android TV. Maybe that standard will be Android TV, but we'll see. There are a few others out there, at least one, RDK, that could be a race between the two. So thank you very much for these very enlightening, interesting talks. Edwin, fantastic that you shared with us your challenges and thinking. And thank you also for Chris and Jim to join us and shed lights on it. What did you do to make this a success? Thank you at home for or in the office or wherever you are for your questions. And again, if you want to go back, we talked a lot, see the recording. You're going to see a link in your email very soon. Thanks, everyone. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care, everybody.